Welcome to the ACA Executive Summit today. I'm Duke Worthington, and I have the pleasure and honor of interviewing Jeff Miner. And a lot of times we don't go through the whole bio, but this is a pretty cool one. I'm going to go through the majority of it here just to give you guys an idea and gals an idea of what Jeff's done, about what he's doing now. But welcome.
Thanks, Duke. I'm happy to be here.
It's an honor to be here with you, and we'll see how this goes. This could be fun, folks. This could be.
We know each other.
Hold on. Yes, we've worked together on some other projects before, so yes, this could be interesting. Let me start out. Jeff's licensed professional counselor with a focus on athletes. He's made peak performance and finding the fun again a focal point of his career. He played competitive sports up to the collegiate level, a wrestler, and I think did some other sports too, but wrestling took you into college, correct?
Baseball, did some
baseball.
Mountain bike racing.
Yeah, pretty serious on the mountain bike racing. And I'll throw in still rides today. In fact, had a little competitive event. Was it the first of last month, or is that coming up?
It's coming up. We postponed it.
Okay, got butt back, but he has a race with a gentleman who is a pretty hardcore triathlete. So this will put old Jeff to the test. As a professional, he's contracted with the United States Olympic Committee, was formerly Director of Research for the National Institute of Child-Centered Coaching. He received his bachelor's degree from Utah State and his master's degree from the University of Utah. In his professional career, he's worked with individual team players of the Utah Jazz, professional golfers, Ironmen, baseball players, MMA fighters, which I know has been a passion for a while, and he's gone to some of the fights to support his clients. And done well with them.
We love going.
Yeah, he really enjoys that. Professional golfers, I said, the soccer shooters, and contracted with athletes on the U.S. Olympic team, as well as hundreds of high school athletes of all sports, and I know also college. You've done some work with college, and here in Kansas City,
UMKC's tennis team.
UMKC has had good success with the tennis team. So some neat history there. Also published a book called The Coach's Planner, and we'll touch on that a little bit later in this interview. That helps youth sports coaches to adhere to legal and ethical coaching practices within their leagues. He's written a lot of articles regarding motivation, getting into the zone, pre-competition anxiety, which could apply to a lot of things we all do as far as that goes, championship thinking, overcoming obstacles, ethical practices, a lot of things. He's even worked on eating disorders, which has had some play into some of the athletes. I think some of the gymnasts, the Olympic gymnasts, he worked with them and some of the eating disorders of some of them. As you can imagine, those teeny tiny little girls out there competing deal with some weight issues and how they handle that. And Jeff's worked with them on that. But his main thing is making sports fun and really making it fun again. Parenting athletes and what to say. Here's a big one. I had a son who was a star, and I learned this one the hard way. What to say when your child loses. What happens when those kids don't do well, and how the parents respond. So pretty important. With 30 years of experience in psychology and athletics, his top priority has been to make sure athletes get the maximum enjoyment out of playing. And if I can get to the next page, we'll go.
More than one page?
Yeah, you've got all kinds of neat stuff. So when that happens is athletes win. They can perform at their peak, and that's his real focus right now. He's found that the process includes walking into the fear, and I'd like to touch on that.
You bet.
And addressing the issues that are really keeping you stuck, all of us, stuff like low confidence, fear of letting others down, performance anxiety we spoke of, pressure, perfectionism, that gets a lot of us, doubt, and you are the biggest, usually, self-critic. Embarrassment, feeling like you're not enough, fear of and confidence can't simultaneously exist.
Right.
Hard to say together also.
It is difficult to say, yes.
You have to walk into it. So, and I will say this from experience just in the programs that I've been involved with Jeff and hanging out with him. The main thing he does is just have you feel comfortable and enjoy the process and just have fun. He really is about fun. So with that, let's jump into it. You ready?
All right.
All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So you talked a little bit about you were quite an athlete yourself, and ended up going into college.
Yes.
In wrestling, correct?
In wrestling and played some baseball.
And did a little baseball.
A little baseball, but it was mainly wrestling.
Okay. And then injuries, is that?
Well, I'll start from the beginning.
Start with that.
Started out in Iowa. a wrestler. Second grade, I started with all my friends. We went to a tournament, and it just happened to be that I won the tournament. My friends didn't. I didn't know why I did. Didn't know what I was doing. I was wearing long underwear. I mean, it was not a pretty sight for me for my first. But I won.
Glad we started there.
Right. So then I did it one other time that year, and I thought, oh, this is kind of cool. Maybe I would like to learn about it. And so I started going to practice and learning more, and I ended up loving it up until about 4th or 5th grade. And
What happened?
4th and 5th grade, I had never lost. I was like 350-0. Had never lost, didn't know how to lose. And small town in Jefferson, Iowa, where everybody knew me as Jeff the Wrestler. That's what I was known as. I wrestled the Junior Olympics. I didn't really go to school all the time. I did some other things. So it's like I was busy doing that a lot. But then I started feeling pressure. And pressure to win, pressure to perform, pressure to, you know what? It probably was from inside, but it felt like it was everybody out there. I mean, I felt like my coaches and my parents and the town, you know, it's a small town, and everybody's like, oh, Jeff, how you doing? I saw you on this. And so it's like I felt like everybody's happiness depended on me winning. And that just kind of got worse the farther I got in age, and I felt more and more pressure, and I didn't know how to deal with it. Nobody said, Jeff, it's a sport. Nobody said, hey, here's some techniques that you can learn to be able to relax. Here's, you know, you're giving all this focus to, I can't get beat, I can't, and that's all I was worried about is you can't lose. You can't even let anybody get close to you. And it was all about winning. And it took the fun out of the sport, totally. It became a job at about 7th grade. And I felt like I had to win. It wasn't an option. And dealing with anxiety, getting sick before matches, thinking, God, I just wish I could be a normal kid and go and play with them. Instead, I've got to practice and do all this. So I dealt with all these stresses and emotions, but I kept doing it. For some reason, I kept doing it because I got glory, I got scholarship offers, I got all that kind of stuff. So I went to college, and I wrestled in college, and I really struggled, and this is where those weight issues came in.
I was going to ask where
yeah.
you're having to cut weight and do all of that.
My freshman year in college, I thought, hey, this is going to be like high school. You know, if you can beat somebody at a higher weight, that's where you're going to wrestle, is at the higher weight. Well, I came in at 225, pretty solid, and been wrestling all summer and training. And I thought, you know, I'm going to bump up in weight. And the coach first thing said, Minor, we recruited you at 150. That's where you're going to wrestle. So it's like, I have 2 months to lose 75 pounds. And they don't tell you how back then. This was just, hey, you need to lose 75 pounds.
Put on a sweatsuit.
If you want to keep your scholarship. So at that point, you do pretty much whatever it takes to lose the weight because you're keeping your scholarship. So I really struggled. I wasn't happy. I wasn't having fun because dieting all the time and working out like 6 to 8 hours a day and all this kind of stuff. But I kept doing it because I think I liked the glory. I liked hey, there's a wrestler. And then my junior year, I blew out my knee. And career ending. It was big time bad. And I went through about a year after that of depression. Pretty serious depression. I didn't know what I was going to do. I wanted to I was going to try out for the Olympics. I had all these plans, and all of a sudden it was gone. And so about a year later, I decided I want to become the guy that I wish I would have had to talk to. I want to be that guy that can say, hey, you know what? It's going to be all right. And you can do this. Let's just figure out what's in your way and what are you doing to stop you from doing that, and how do you relax? And after you do blow your career and you're done, and it's like, how do you handle that? What do you do to move forward? So I kind of dedicated my life to, I want to be that guy. I want to be the guy for athletes that want to have fun again. And when you take away the anxiety, the pressure to perform, you take away the shame if you play bad, the guilt, or you're letting everybody else down, you take that all away and help them to deal with those, they start having fun. And that's when they play their best.
So did you shift at that time, Jeff, your major and directions you were going, or were you already headed that direction into counseling and those types?
I undergrad, I didn't decide till I was done with undergrad. I got a degree in psychology and biology, but I didn't know I wanted to be a counselor at that point. And then after I got done, it's like, and I started in the sports psychology realm, but then I realized you don't get to really work with people that I wanted to work with and how I wanted to work with. A sports psychologist isn't a licensed counselor. They don't necessarily do counseling. Some of them do have a counseling degree along with it, but it is a different baby. We can do things that are like work with mental illness, depression, anxiety, those types of things that we have training in, but also with like when I'm working with professional athletes, it isn't usually the athlete's performance that they're struggling with. It's an addiction or a couples issue, or they're struggling with their kids, or they're not doing something outside of that realm that's affecting their performance.
Yeah. Wow. So thank you.
You bet.
That's one of those opportunities in your life that something happened.
Right.
And it took a while. Like you say, in your junior year, it took about a year to figure out what you really wanted to do and to take those experiences from little bitty all the way up and what you can make a difference for. So,
you bet.
So then you went ahead and finished your degree on that, and then decided to go to get a master's in education?
Well, it ended, in educational psychology
Educational
and
psychology.
counseling psychology.
Okay.
And I was fascinated with athletes that had eating disorders.
Okay.
And because of my challenges and some of the behaviors that I did,
The only things you learned.
I wrote a paper on it, and I worked with the University of Utah gymnasts, some of them, and did some real preliminary research, but at that time there wasn't a lot of research that was being done on it. So, and then it just happened to be with some of the connections that I had with the American Athletic Association of the Deaf, and I knew somebody at the Olympic Committee that did scoring for gymnastics. I got into the Olympic Committee where I pretty much started my internship.
Wow. And we've talked a bit before. You got to fly down to Colorado Springs and actually work with the with the Olympic athletes. So I mean, it was the real deal. It wasn't just by title. I was doing some research and one of those things. You were actually going down there at the Springs at the training center and working with Olympic athletes.
Yeah, flying back and forth.
Flying back and forth up
and
back
then
into Utah.
then when they brought some of the athletes to Utah to train for those Olympics, I got to stay home more for a while.
Yeah, good. And in that time frame, tell me when your book came to be and all of that. You were in that time frame?
It was right in that time frame, and it was like it was called the Coach's Planner, and basically it was, I was confused on why it costs so much for athletes or young kids to play sports. And so I went to the insurance company. I said, hey, you know what, why is it so expensive? And they said, well, the parents are signing the consent to treat forms, but the coaches aren't taking them with them. There's no equipment checklist forms. There's no emergency plan. If you're in baseball and a kid gets hurt, do you go with the team or stay with the team you're legally responsible for, or do you go with the kid? So all these ethical discipline behaviors, and a lot of coaches wouldn't give kids water until they did something, and I've had that.
I remember that one.
But it's like, so that book kind of included those types of things, and I busted my butt and went out and sold about 100 of them.
About 100.
Yeah, I did really good. I nailed it. And it took almost 6 months to sell that 100. And
then what happened?
Well, then I got really frustrated, and I went and talked to the insurance companies, and I said, hey, you know what, you told me these were the reasons. What if I could guarantee that everybody would have a book in the league? And they said, they'd all be required to carry it. And on the back was a dry erase marker you could put in different fields, and you could put the Little League Baseball or whatever on the cover, so it was made for them.
Really innovative. I mean, you came up with something that hadn't been out before. It was
Right.
totally new. Yeah.
And so all of a sudden the insurance companies were giving a discount that was more than what my book cost. So they were really excited the leagues were, hey, I'll buy this many of them because we're going to save this much money. So it ended up being really a good deal for me.
Yeah, worked out well for you
Right.
in many ways.
Yes.
And we've talked a little bit about this before. It was kind of that perfect storm that we've talked about where you had the right connections, you had a good position that allowed you people to work with,
Right.
and a situation where your background allowed you to offer something through those connections and the timing of it
Right.
that was somewhat a perfect storm, and it actually
Luck.
became, yeah. Okay,
Right,
luck.
right. Luck counts.
Luck was so much of that. Like you said,
Right.
you went out and busted your hump to get 100.
Yes.
And then it just went off.
Right.
And did very well financially, and you got a lot of
Right.
coaches out there paying more attention to those things.
You bet.
So it worked well. But the bottom line, and we've laughed about this, is it sometimes boils down to just working hard, being innovative, persevering, staying with it, like they
Yeah.
all tell us.
Yeah.
But then it's also a matter of just putting it out there and having some luck that sticks.
Right.
But you've got to stay with it until that luck hits.
Exactly.
And so people measure what is it really luck? Is it perseverance? What is
Right.
it? But that was a perfect storm for you, and it worked out well.
Perfectly.
And tell me, when that happened,
Yeah.
at what point in your schooling, your career, where were you at that point? Did you take some time? How did you kind of
I
bring
was
that together?
just kind of finishing up.
Okay. And your
When,
master's.
yeah, my master's, and just kind of, I was in a position at that point where I needed to take some personal time.
Well, at the time, if I remember, you were saying you were involved in the school for the deaf.
The American Athletic Association of the Deaf.
The deaf,
I was with the National Institute of Child-Centered Coaching. I was
Working with Olympics still?
working with the Olympics kind of through the athletic, and then I was going to school, finishing my school. So all that kind of stuff.
And wrote a book in the process.
Right.
So pretty
right.
crazy. So you were due for a break.
Right. I needed some time off.
Okay. And at the end of that time, where did you find yourself?
Somebody thought from like my resume, it looks pretty good, worked at the Olympic Committee, did this, that I could run a hospital.
Ah.
And I believed them for a while. All right, I could, yeah, all right, this sounds good, let's do it. And I found out quickly, before 8 months, I resigned at 8 months saying, I hate this. This is not what I do in life, yeah. So
Did that bring you to
it
this
brought me to
area?
Missouri.
So it brought you to Missouri.
In southern Missouri, I did that. And then I met someone, had a baby, came up to Kansas City, and started a private practice about 14 years ago.
Wow. So you took that experience, turned it into a business, your profession now.
Right.
But I'm going to turn this a little bit on you, and I'm going to ask, and we didn't chat about this, so he doesn't know, but I'm going to ask you about Savannah.
Ooh,
This is his daughter, and she's an amazing young lady.
I'm in love.
Yeah, so you can see the change in his face right now. She's a neat young lady. But the reason I bring her up is, number one, I know how special she really is, truly.
She's
and
wonderful.
how proud you are of her.
Yes.
What's that done to you in business, in your practice, how you approach life? Because most business people
Yeah.
deal with family and with kids and those things. What's happened with you in that arena?
You know, she's been like the unconditional support. You know what? And she's 13, and I can ask her business ideas, and she helps. It's like, wow, that really made sense. And what I have also learned is her ability to change people's moods is amazing. She used to have an office at my office. And when people would come in and
I
see
actually share
her,
it with her every once in a while.
right, exactly. And everybody just loved her, and they changed their mood. So it's like almost a therapeutic technique. It's like, let them meet Savannah first, and they can come in and talk to me.
Well, and I know one time in a conversation with her, and I'll let you tell it real quickly, but you were talking about and complaining, a parent complaining, imagine that, about the use of the cell phone, the texting, and all the time spent on the phone. And Savannah gave you a bit of an insight, didn't she, about that's the way things are today. How did that come about?
Actually, I twisted around on her a little bit.
Yeah, tried to.
And because my daughter's never been very easily buffaloed. And so I decided I'm going to use some reverse psychology here, and I'm going to tell her how wonderful the cell phones are and how great they are and how I want you to use it, and I want you to master this, and I want you to be in control of it and not let it control you. And it worked.
And
Because what she has done is she has only allowed herself to use it for things for growing and this kind of stuff, but she doesn't want it to control her. And so we turned it all around because I know she's kind of a control person.
yeah, she has. Yes. And she also,
So
she also shared with you about how sometimes our generation, as we get older, fail to embrace.
Yeah.
And so you
That's
reversed it on her,
right.
and then she turned it right around and gave a great lesson.
Right.
And I think it's one for all of us that that we can embrace some of the things. We have a tendency to
Yeah.
get stuck in our own ways, and that's part of what you do in your coaching.
Yeah.
Is people who get stuck in one way, you bring them back.
Right.
So just a little bit. Thanks for sharing about.
Yeah,
Savannah.
I
She's
love
a
that.
Sweet gal. But one of the other things is you've always maintained your counseling clients. So you've
Yes.
had a different group of clients that come in, not specifically always sports,
Right.
but you've maintained that, and yet you've still been able to work towards really giving great service and counseling and training to those athletes.
Yeah.
How do you find yourself in business juggling between
Well-
a basis and then doing what something's really you're passionate
You
about?
bet.
Which you are about the counseling too.
Well,
so-
no, and the really cool part is you're talking the same thing. When I'm working with athletes or when I'm working with people in counseling, it's all the same.
Okay.
It's like anybody that comes into me, this is kind of how I work it. Where are you now? Where do you want to be? And then let's figure out the steps or what it's going to take for you to get there. And then I'm going to hold you accountable. And usually what it is like everybody out here, I know what it is that we should do. You know, it's if you want to lose weight, what should you do? Eat differently, exercise more, those things. We all know those things. We should make more calls. We should go out and all those types of things. We know what we should be doing usually, but there's a reason why we're not.
Okay.
And that's where we have to dig into, and that's where most people are intimidated to go there because you have to be real with yourself. You have to own your shit right here.
Yeah. I don't know if you all received one of these, but it's a good reminder for you. So grab one of these before we're done and put that on.
It's like if you have fears of calling people, are you just going to sit there and let that fear control you and ruin your business? If you have fears of speaking, are you not going to address that? So it's like, how do we address fears? You know, what do you do to, like, confidence and fear are on the opposite ends of the spectrum. And I do this with athletes a lot. So it's like you can't be confident and have fear. It just doesn't work. So to make confidence go up, what do we have to do? We have to address the fear. And that's what most people don't do, is truly dig into that fear. And what is it that I'm afraid of? Is it a fear of success? Is it a fear of embarrassing myself? Or letting others down, or really trying and not being enough, or that I'm going to screw something up. So, but the thing is, we just live with that instead of walk into it. And what I mean by walk into it is we go there. We talk about it. We dive into that feeling. We help you to experience and see that it's not that bad. We do trauma techniques if it's a really bad situation. But you go into the fear because if you don't address it, it's always going to stay there. Like if you've got a fear of screwing up in tennis, if you don't go there and address that and work on that, you're always going to have that fear of screwing up in tennis. So it's like you have to go there.
Yeah, got to dig into those things.
Yeah, and that's what we do. And with my athletes, with people in business, we go there.
So in the business aspect of it, because a lot of times we don't think of counselors as business people, but that's
Right.
a business.
Right.
And you're running a business, and you've changed direction several times, though you've maintained that steady base and worked with counseling clients throughout. You've changed directions. What's helped you as a business person really become successful in your business and help you maintain focus? Just some areas in there. What's made a difference for you? You had the perfect storm at one point.
Right.
You've taken a couple of other directions and followed those for a bit, and then now you've started to really gain some momentum and go in an area that you've refocused on now.
Yeah.
And what's allowed you to do that? What's made some differences?
Honestly, lots of things.
For
But-
businesses, yeah. What's anything out
Part
of
of
that?
it is coming to the understanding that if I want this to be bigger than me, I need help. And I always was that self-motivated, I can do this, wrestler. And for me to ask for help is not easy, for one, but to realize that I stink at running a hospital. I stink at budgeting for my business. So it's like either I master that or I get somebody to do it and put the right people on the bus or whatever you need. But you can't, it's just like with a fear. You've got to address it, you've got to do it, and somehow it's got to get done.
Yeah, and for business, we've chatted at other times about what happens in the business and moving it forward and getting the right people together. And I think so many of us, especially in this group of people that often show up here, we're solopreneurs, we have small organizations, and you've been through that, and you've found someone who can give you good assistance, who works with you, who's able to do the things that are shortcomings, so to
Right.
speak, are blind spots, as we see,
Right.
and been able to work through that to a place now to where, what difference has it made for you in your business? What has it allowed you to be able to do?
Well, my whole goal is to do the aspects of my business that I love, or else I would be working for somebody else. So it's like I've got specific aspects of my business that just rock my world. And that's usually like a one-on-one, sit down, we come up with your plan, and right when you're starting to enjoy the ride and get to where you want to be, then I'm just thrilled to death.
And though you focus on athletes, and that's a big part of it,
Right.
this applies to anyone that's
Yeah.
looking, a business person, anyone who would like to maybe dig into some of their fears.
You bet.
Work through that. It's applicable to all of those. I know that you've written, you've done many different things. Now you've moved into more of the social media aspect. You've done some, is it vlogging, or have you done some videos and stuff? So
Working on
so
videos,
you
yeah.
continue, what have you found in that area of your business? Putting the word out. Because I think even originally, did you just do some advertising in Psychology Today and stuff? Is it-
Right, yeah.
Just a little ad and start
Right.
off.
And it all depends on what you're looking for and your target audience and how you go about doing it. And certain audiences look at this more or this more. And I get confused because mine is a little different as far as I'm a licensed professional counselor. So I have to follow HIPAA rules. So I can't say, hey, I worked with this athlete, or hey, I did this. So I kind of have to go around the back door and work with teams, or I've worked with this team, or I've done this. But social media is a huge deal, and it's something that I'm working to get better at. Yeah.
You reverse psychology with Savannah, and so trying to get her to be a part of that and to use it.
Oh man,
use
if
it
I can tap
thoughtfully.
in, if I
Yeah.
can tap into her for business, I'll tell you what.
So if you had just a couple of takeaways from what you've learned, both in your counseling and in business, what two or three, and I don't want to lead you in any of those
Yeah.
directions, just take a couple of things real quick and give me a bit of a summary of what's made the biggest difference for you as you've progressed through your business to where you are today. What's made the biggest difference?
Yeah. Probably, I think, when you start becoming, or you learn how to become your own biggest fan. You know, I think with me, a lot of the story that I told myself, I was a perfectionist. I beat myself up. I was hard on myself and it's like, wait, that's not getting me what I want. It's like having this little critic over my head walking around behind me all day saying, wrong, wrong. instead of the little guy going, hey, way to go, good job.
Celebrate those successes.
Yeah,
and
so
what
it's
you
like
enjoy.
once you become your biggest fan and you stop beating yourself up,
Okay.
you start taking chances because you're not afraid of that reprimand, or you start going for things, or so I think that's a big piece. And then getting out of your own way.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I've had to do exactly what I tell everybody else is you got to address your fears. And it's not easy to go into that spot. You know, most people spend their whole life avoiding feeling those fears. Right. It's like I will drink, I will do whatever to avoid this feeling, I will eat, I will, but until you are serious and you address them, they're always going to be there and they're going to control your success.
So in life, in business, all of it, it's being willing to face those fears.
Right.
Get that critic off your shoulder.
Right.
And I'm guessing start having some fun.
It will happen. Once that mean person is gone off your shoulder, it's like the fun starts to happen.
Thank you very much.
You bet. Thank you.
Good stuff. Good stuff.